Hey everyone, you got Rod Crandall here, Chief Integration Officer at U.S. Advisors Insurance. You got Brent DeGroot, maybe below me, maybe next to me. He's our special guest today from One America. And we're really happy to be able to deliver to you in the next, say, 50 minutes, hopefully something that will be very meaningful with a focus on long-term care planning and a focus on some of the wonderful solutions and some of the unique solutions that are available specifically with One America. And so the plan that we have for you today is to really give you some tips on how to have an appropriate conversation. In order to have successful integration, we want to be able to have the right kind of person with the right kind of conversation. And we certainly want it to be in the right context and tone. And words do matter. It's not always what you say, it's how you say it. Also, you're really in the bird seat, in my opinion, relative to conducting financial plan. The best way to make a long-term care recommendation is in the context of financial plan. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means and with a focus on what this type of coverage does, not necessarily what it is. A bulk of our time is going to be with Brent, where he's going to describe to us a little bit more about how wonderful One America is positioned, a little bit about the company, a little bit about their structures. As I've alluded to, there are some very unique things that this company has that we want to make sure that you're aware of. And then ultimately, what we do here, if you've ever tuned in, is we're really helping you to intentionally integrate insurance into your practice. And so we can have all of the structures and strategies, and we can have a good plan, but if we don't do it on purpose, we're not going to be able to have much success in this area. So we want to be able to give you a couple of tips on that, and then finally share a few resources that we have, including a little bit of a talk track and some other things that might help you spearhead in this area. Now, if you're tuning in, this is a series that we call our Coach's Corner. So we conduct these once a month on the third Thursday of each month. And this is an ongoing series. We do record all of these sessions. And so to the extent that you'd like to go back in our library, we can certainly make that available for you as well. So for a little bit of perspective to set the stage before I introduce Brent on, is a little bit for perspective, right? If you've heard me talk about long-term care insurance before, you know that I have a belief that we're not really talking about long-term care insurance, meaning that if our clients or ourselves, if we need long-term care, I believe we're going to get the care that we need. And if we get the care we need, it's going to cost something. And if it costs something, we're going to be paying for it unless we have some form of long-term care protection. And so really what we're describing there and talking about is retirement portfolio protection. What is the impact on the income and the assets if we have to double dip because one of us is ill, right? So what's that impact? And by the way, what happens if that occurs in a down market? You know, what if that happened last year and the portfolio is down 20%? What does that mean? What does that mean to our goals? What does that mean to our financial plan? What does that mean to our legacy, right? And so at the end of the day, people can get pretty confused about long-term care and think, boy, I got so many options, I just can't make heads or tails. And that can be a real thing, and we're going to address that a little bit today, right, about being strategic on how we present these things. But at the very end of the day, you don't really have 10 options or 20 options. You really have 2 options. Option number 1, you can recognize the risk and the consequences that you have regarding this important planning item, and you can effectively keep all of your money. Or you can transfer some of your dollars in some way, shape, or form to mitigate or transfer some of that risk. And again, we're going to give you some good ideas on how we can do that today. So at the end of the day, that's really just the 2 options. And then finally, this stuff is so important in my opinion, because if our families or our clients have a long-term care event, it's guaranteed to be a very emotional time. And I call that an emotional catastrophe. If we have an emotional catastrophe at the exact same time we have a mathematical catastrophe, well, that's really big trouble. That's akin to putting a magnifying glass in the sun and just watching your yard just go up in flames. And so our job is to be able to help our clients and touch their heart, have an appropriate conversation with them, educate them on what their options are, ask them for consideration in whether or not they want any of this important planning structure, they want any of this protection, and then we tie it up to the financial plan. If we do this right, what we end up with is better outcomes for our clients, and we end up driving additional revenue to our practices. The last thing I'll note before I invite Brent onto this call is field underwriting. This is very important in all of insurance, but it's extremely important in long-term care insurance. Please don't run quotes, please don't request quotes, and certainly don't deliver quotes without asking some medical questions. There is a big difference in how these things are underwritten, whether we have a life insurance component or a long-term care component, or maybe both, and whether we're using lump sum structures, et cetera. So a good place to start is, have you had any diagnoses, or are you on any prescription medication? I know that it can be uncomfortable to ask these questions, and sometimes it's uncomfortable for me as well. But if we don't do that, what ends up happening is we can waste a lot of time and lead our clients down roads that are ultimately dead ends. And we can waste their time, can waste your time as the advisor. Candidly, you could waste me and my team's time. Everybody's time gets wasted if we're not clear, because at the very end of the day, even if you want this stuff, we've got to be able to qualify for it, right? And so if we need to qualify for it at the very end of the day, what we do is we go solidify the pricing structure through the underwriting process, right? We think we can get it, but we're not sure. You got to qualify. And so that's a little tip for you relative to moving someone into underwriting. So with that, what I'd like to do is I would like to stop sharing my screen. I would like to ask Brent to please come on and go ahead and give us your wisdom about One America and some of the designs. And I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about where you guys are situated and how we can help clients together. So Brent, take it away.
All right, appreciate that, Rod. We just confirmed that you can see my screen.
I can, yes.
All right, I am going to do a couple things here. All right, Rod, great comments to start, and I love the way you kind of kick this thing off. And one of the questions, medical questions or underwriting questions that I would certainly ask up front, sometimes too, is do they have any planned surgeries? It's amazing how they don't think that a planned surgery may affect their underwriting process. So another good one, just to add to the mix there. But I'll get more into underwriting here in just a little bit. But again, great way to kick this off. As Rod said, I'm Brent DeGroot. I'm one of the regional account directors here at One America, and I really wanted to go through a little bit about who One America is and what we have as far as asset-based long-term care planning solutions for your clients. So we'll start off here by just talking about, we're an asset-based leader in this space, One America. And you can see that from our financial strengths here. Current Comdex is 95. So for those of you that focus on that, obviously we're in the top 5% of all life insurance carriers out there. So we're very financially secure. We're A+ rated from AM Best. We actually can trace our roots as an insurance company back to 1877. But we've been doing asset-based long-term care planning now for over 35 years. As a matter of fact, we were one of the innovators in this type of space, one of the first to market with these types of plans. And that the first asset care iteration, I guess, that we sold was back in 1988. And that was the year I graduated from high school. So I can't forget that one. You know how old I am. So the other thing that I really like to mention about One America too is that we're a mutual company. So we're always thinking in terms of who our clients are. We're trying to design, administer, pay claims, and really, reinvest into the portfolio, because we're reporting to those same policy holders, not to a stockholder. So very focused on our end consumer customer, your clients, when you represent them to us, and certainly put your trust in us to help them should they have any needs in the future. So we've got a number of things that I really like to talk about that kind of sets us apart in this asset-based planning space. First and foremost, we've got two chassis, if you will, a life insurance chassis and an annuity chassis. So we're the only asset-based carrier that has both chassis. A number of them out there that have one or the other, but just not both. One of the things that sets us apart as well is that we can do either a joint or a single life case. All other asset-based carriers out there are all single life. You've got to put, so if you've got a couple, you've got to put, individual plans in place. Well, we can do that, but certainly we have the joint capability. So adding spouses or whatever the laws of the state recognize, we can put them both on one policy, and they can share in that policy, share in those benefits. And many times what that does is, you're going to pay less premiums and many times get more benefits. So a joint or single life offering is certainly something that sets us apart. A variety of funding options. And I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. Maybe, some of the funding options that are out there, that's maybe where the minutia comes in and can start some confusion and that sort of thing. So I try and keep it as simple as possible, but no, we've got ways that we can create, every client is different, right? So we've got ways that we can take whatever their situation is and put a great long-term care plan in place. Another differentiator with us is that we've got the optional lifetime benefit structure. So we can plan much like our competitors out there for the average need of care. But one of the things that we strongly believe at One America is making sure that they've got coverage for as long as one person or both of them would need. So never running out of those benefits. So I'll show you some examples around that as well. Care benefit concierge. This is where the rubber meets the road. So when that claim time first hits, that family's kind of in a very tumultuous time. They're worried about their loved one and still trying to figure out, okay, now what are we going to do? Where are we going to, who are we going to have come in the home? Where are we going to put them? Are they going to go to an assisted living facility, nursing home, whatever the case may be? The care benefit concierge, we get so much great feedback on. It is a single point contact in Indianapolis, so not shipped across, the ocean, that sort of thing. So you're talking to somebody that is very well versed in English, but they're that single point contact. So when family members may be calling in or whatever, they don't have to re-explain the whole situation. They've got one care concierge that'll be with them for that whole claim time. So get a ton of great feedback on that. And then very reasonable underwriting guidelines, which I'll get into here in just a little bit as well. But let's focus on the advantages when planning for long-term care around asset-based solutions. I've been in the long-term care industry now for 21 years, 17 of those with a traditional carrier, 4 now with One America. And really, what's great about these asset-based solutions, why many advisors like them, why many clients like these types of plans, is the fact that we've got, no matter what the benefit holds, or excuse me, what the future holds, there's going to be a benefit for it. So live, quit, or die, they get something for this plan that they put in place. So they live, they need long-term care services or income for those services, they've got that. If they quit and walk away, it's still their asset. They have access to that in the form of dollars back to them. If they die and never need it, this is at least on our life-based chassis, it would be a tax-free death benefit that gets passed on to their heirs. So they can leave that legacy, which many of your clients want to do for their children or whoever they really want to, a charity, their church, whatever that happens to be. But they can pass any of those unused benefits on when they pass. Secondly, guarantees. Why clients like these is the fact that there's guarantees. There's no rate increases in the future. The premiums are guaranteed day one. You also have cash value growth, a guaranteed death benefit, guaranteed cash surrender values. So again, all these are guarantees built into the plan and won't change in the future. I talked about 3 and 4 here a little bit earlier, but we've got our joint second to die coverage, which again stands us out in this market space, if you will, and that optional lifetime protection as well. So when you're thinking about the lifetime, I always like to think of it as, like Rock was saying early on, that catastrophic coverage, making sure that they can afford probably the smaller early claims dollars, but it's that catastrophic risk that they're protecting against, something like a dementia or an Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, where these claims can last, 10, 15, 20 years. And that catastrophic coverage is really where that kicks in well. All right, so here's a concept, if you will, and I like to simplify things as much as possible. I think it makes it much easier for you to understand and thus to relate to the client so they can understand. So keeping it as simple as possible, it's just a two-piece part of this equation. The concept is it's a base policy. That base policy is either a life insurance plan or an annuity. So that's the base policy. Plus, then you add a rider to that base policy, which can continue those benefits should they use up the benefits in the base policy. Now, again, we can do that for a limited period of time, typically doubling the original base policy, or we can create that lifetime unlimited LTC benefit amount, truly putting that catastrophic coverage in place. Now, it's very simple, base and rider, right? Hopefully you've got that concept. Where we can start to bring in a little bit more choice points is really how to fund it. So you can see this slide gets a little busy after that. So funding options, lots of ways that we can do this. When these types of plans were first created, they were all on a single pay basis. So had to reposition a portion of the portfolio, had to take some savings out and put it towards these types of plans, whatever the case may be, maybe even using cash value from another life insurance plan. So it was all around that single premium basis. Well, 35 years in, certainly we've recognized over that time period that not everybody has that ability to just plump down a single pay option. So we've created recurring premiums as well. We've got a number of options around that. We've got our 5 pay, 10 pay, 20 pay. So pay for that amount of years and then it's a paid up policy, or our pay to age 95, which is really our annual pay. And we're seeing a lot of business around this. About 70% of our business now is around these recurring premium type of options there. So it doesn't have to be only single pay now. It can be some of these recurring situations. Another one that we get a lot of great interest around is using qualified funds. And I'm going to go through an example here in just a little bit around that. But most people don't understand that you can use qualified funds to put a long-term care plan in place. So we've got that ability as well. And any of those 1035 exchange options, we can do that also. I kind of mentioned that. And on the rider side, essentially it's all the same there. But one thing that I will note here is that our rider is formulated by the IRS to be 7702B. So if you're working with any business owner clients, this is a great door opener there to get their long-term care plan in place, running it through the business, taking a deduction, depending on how they file, for the rider portion of that, which is really the LTC premium. So thought I would quickly mention that as well. As I said, I've been in this industry now for 21 years, and I've seen a lot of objections. Some of the more recent ones were the rate increases and that sort of thing. But probably the biggest objection we always felt was this concept of self-funding. I don't need that. It's not going to happen to me, or I've got enough money. My advisor tells me I'm fine. I don't need to worry about this kind of stuff. So it's that whole concept of self-funding. Well, and that may be the case, and that may be their choice. But I just wanted to give you some examples here. And let's just say we've got an individual that goes on claim. Well-balanced portfolio, right? I forgot to talk about that, or how well-balanced it was. Conservative, moderate, aggressive funds, all well-balanced portfolio. So if they had 1 year of claim and it cost $125,000, is that going to affect their plan that much? No, it takes a small portion out of that. Probably not going to be that great of an impact. But now we start to look at multiple years. So, another year of 125, another year of 125. How quickly we can start to eat up that whole financial portfolio. And remember, that was earmarked for retirement. So it wasn't earmarked to provide income for any long.
Technology being what technology is, it's wonderful until it's not wonderful. So as we wait for Brent to come back, this is how I was going to end this meeting, which is that, if you're going to do this type of work, as I mentioned, you have to really do it on purpose, and you have to do it with intention. And so at the end of the day, what we really coach advisors to do is, first of all, identify the people that we need to have this kind of conversation with. And so we have a page, a 3-pager called Identifying Opportunities for Insurance. And I could spend a whole hour walking through. This is actually my favorite piece to think about, well, what opportunities exist within your clients and within your prospects, but focused into retirement portfolio protection. Generally speaking, the people we're going to be talking to are going to be 50 or older. I happen to think 50 is the absolute sweet spot for this type of planning, because people are often empty nesting. They're making more money than they maybe ever have. They're close to retirement, and they're really paying attention and trying to button things up. Right. So if you have people that are 50 or older and they're concerned about protecting their incomes and assets, right? They have income to protect, they have assets to protect. At the very end of the day, they not only want to protect their assets, they want to protect their family, right? They want to protect that family both spiritually, perhaps, physically, financially. Hi, Brent. I went ahead and jumped in while we were waiting for you.
That's
So let
great.
me
Yeah,
let me go
sorry.
through one piece and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
I've already apologized, technology being what it is, right? So you're fine. I'm just going to do my ending part now, and then I'm going to come back to you and we'll pick you right back up, okay?
Perfect.
So we're in profiling. We want to be able to protect family financially, physically, etc. Many of our clients want to leave a legacy to their children, right? You might have had somebody in the past that you presented long-term care insurance to on the traditional side, and maybe they didn't want it. So these would be things for you to pay attention to. I happen to love the identification of lazy assets. If you start talking to clients about where their assets are and specifically how they would pay for a long-term care your event, you're often going to find accounts that are in savings accounts and money markets and CDs that maybe you didn't know about. They're perfect for some of the planning that Brent's going to talk to you about in a minute. And it's really a repositioning. If you can ask somebody to reposition an asset as opposed to ask them to pay for premium, I personally believe that's about 3 times easier to ask them to put money from one pocket to another pocket than to come up with additional dollars to send to the insurance company. So if we're talking with the right person, then it's a matter of what kind of conversation do we have. And we've put together a talk track that I happen to like, that if you want to see, you can reach out to us. I just want to go over it very briefly, right? Talk about, well, what's the risk? I think we're really talking about longevity risk. If you're running financial plans out to age 90 or 95, it's a very good chance you already have this fundamental belief as the client that you might live a long life. Well, to the extent we live a long life, what is the likelihood that one of us may need care, right? So what's our risk? Now, risk is important, but consequences are more important, right? What are the consequences to your family? What are the personal consequences? What are the financial consequences? At the end of the day, we're not trying to sell insurance. I don't want to be disingenuous. Selling insurance is certainly how we make a living, but we're helping clients think this through. And what they really need is they need a plan. They don't need insurance to have a plan. And generally, the plan that we want to help them to create allows them to stay safe at home. Very few people have I asked and told me that they want to be in a nursing home. Right? Want a plan that's safe in your home and protects the well-being of yourself and your family. Also protects and safeguards what you've set up, your financial plan. At the end of the day, if we have a plan, there's only a few things that can pay for that plan. Medicare can pay for that plan on a very short, limited basis. That's the short-term care piece. Medicaid can certainly pay for care, right? They'll pay forever, but we've got to spend our assets down to a very low number. We have a spousal impoverishment issue. Most of our clients, this is going to be the most expensive plan they could put in place if they're going to count on Medicaid to pay for that. Well, what about self-insuring? Well, maybe they can, but what if it's a down market? And what's the effect on those double dipping? And by the way, do I have permission from myself, from my spouse, from my kids to use those dollars? I've learned over time that an insurance contract can be a permission slip to get the care that we need. So those are 3, then that's left with long-term care insurance. And you start talking to people about this, they'll go, yeah, I don't really want some of that stuff, but I guess I need it. And maybe we ought to do some. And so if we get them to that part, then we just let them know that, there's 2 ways to qualify for benefits, either a cognitive impairment or needing help with the activities of daily living. Talk about the moving parts in the design, the different ways claims are paid on a reimbursement basis or a cash basis. And then some of the plans. In fact, again, normally I would have done this after Brent, but he's got some unique plans and he plays really well in these combination areas. And I'm not going to steal his thunder on that. But the fact is, if you jump right into product first, you're going to lose this conversation. It has to be about how do you feel? What kind of plan do you have? What's going to fund the plan? If we walk them through that, again, at the end of the day, we have two choices. You can keep all your money and keep all the risk, or we can reposition some dollars, right, to transfer some of that risk. And so I would suggest that that this could be a very good track for you. If you're like me, I don't like to use other people's words. I like to use my words. So as I've done over 23 years, I've taken other people's words and I figured out what my words are. So take what you like, drop what you don't, and allow us to help you intentionally integrate insurance. Last thing I'm going to show, and I'm going to send back to Brent, is this asset identifier with apologies to Brent that it's a competitor, but this piece is nice. You have a client who says, hey, I want to self-insure. Well, let's go ahead and identify what asset that is. And that, by the way, is probably the lazy asset that should be considered whether or not we ought to put it in a structure with One America or some of the other carriers that we may have. So this is a nice piece. If you want any of this stuff, reach out to me or George or Andrew. Tom, please go ahead and send this back over to Brent. Brent, at the end of the day, then we've got you till 45 or 47 after. I need probably 3 minutes to wrap up, but you have the rest of the time.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm not sure exactly where you lost me there. I apologize about that, but I'm just going to keep
somewhere around right there. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Moving forward here. How about that?
Okay.
So, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the features that were built into these types of plans. And first and foremost, you know, if we've got a single pay, there's going to be no waiver of premium. It's a one and done, and you're you know, don't have to worry about that. But any of those recurring premium options that I talked about earlier, the 5 pay, 10 pay, 20 pay, pay to age 95, those all come with waiver of premium included. And that's whether it's one person or a joint case. So if it's a joint, now we have one person go on claim, it's going to waive those premiums for both moving forward as long as they're on claim. So another big reason to look at maybe some of those recurring premium options. Now we have a 0-day elimination period for home health care. And as Rod said, you know, look, most people want to stay at home as long as they can. Look, we hope this stuff never happens to us, but there's a high likelihood that it's going to. And why not stay at home? That's, you know, many of us built our homes or lived there for many, many years. They don't want to leave. So 0-day elimination period for home health care. Why make them wait for any benefits that they can receive out of their policy? However, we do have a 90-day elimination period for any facility care. So assisted living facility, full-blown nursing home would be a 90-day elimination period. One other thing that I will add to that, if they have had 90 days of care at home, those days are counting towards that facility side elimination period. So they start, say, call it 180 days at home or something like that. Obviously, there's going to be no elimination period for any facility that they would have to move to. So nice little feature there as well. International care, I don't get a lot of that questions about that in the Midwest, but certainly when I get to the coasts, they're always kind of concerned about that international care, and we've got that available in these policies as well. The main thing I'd really like to focus on here is the issue ages from 35 all the way up to age 80. You just don't find long-term care solutions that can plan that late. So whether they've been just putting us off, burying their head in the sand, you just haven't talked to them about it yet, we can plan all the way through age 80 for these types of solutions. So great options there. Now, I wanted to talk about really the value of our joint coverage. And I've just run some scenarios here. It's a married couple, both age 62. And basically what we're doing is comparing against two of our competitors. And because both of those competitors only have individual coverage or individual plans, they've got to create one for each spouse. So they wanted to put 100,000 in for each spouse. So then the total premium is 200,000. What they asked us to do then was to solve for the same amount of premium dollars, benefit dollars for the couple. So the high mark here was about $5,200 per person per month. And so that's what we use to solve for the same type of situation here to show you the value of joint. So by putting a plan that would give both of those clients $5,200 per month, should they need any long-term care coverage in the future, that's a shareable 5.5 years because we're putting them both on one plan. We're able to save over $103,000 compared to our competitors there. Now, that's 5.5. Their duration was 6 years, and that's for each of them. So this is a much smaller pool. So now let's draw that out. 8.3 years of coverage for both of them. Still the same $5,200 per person per month, but still we save nearly $75,000. So that's just more money that you can keep assets under management. And then if they really wanted that true peace of mind, adding that unlimited coverage. So never will they be able to run out of those benefits, you know, for just an extra, like, you know, three grand more, you know, we're still saving nearly $72,000 by putting that unlimited plan in place for both of these spouses as well. So wanted to show you that true value of the joint coverage. Now I wanted to give you a little bit of differences in how we can structure these as well, because really each individual client's different, right? They've all got their own needs and you know, financial makeup, that sort of thing, how they could maybe fund a type of plan. So what will they value most out of putting a plan like this in place? You know, some people, it could be the death benefit. And so if I focused on creating a single premium plan here, but 4 different ways, here's the highest death benefit that we could get for a couple, and this particular ages is 60. But the death benefit here with a 50-month base plan, so that base life plan with no COB rider, can max out that death benefit here of $510,000 that they could both have access to. Now, if I move forward, so they wanted that, didn't want the higher death benefit, but they wanted to maximize the monthly benefit amount. Here's where I would change the structure just a little bit. I'd put them on a joint plan of a 33-month base policy to pay out, plus a 33-month COB rider. So a total of 66 months that this policy would pay out. But that will maximize the LTC benefits. You can see here, it was at, well, over $11,000 per person per month as far as any LTC benefit would be available. Now, if they didn't use all that, it just stays in the pool and elongates that plan. So we see a number of options come in where they're trying to really maximize or increase that monthly benefit amount, because if they don't use it, it just stays there and they elongate that plan longer than in this particular case, 66 months. So moving forward, some of you may have those really conservative clients or those ones that are afraid, they don't want to make a mistake, and they want full return of premium. So no matter what time they put this plan in place and all of a sudden decide, you know what, I need that money or I want to do something else with that money, they can get every penny back at any point by surrendering those policies. Now, they don't have a long-term care plan, but they'll get every penny back with our full return of premium. The last one here is that true peace of mind that comes with couples in planning for that unlimited benefit, that lifetime payment that you know, neither one of them could outlive. So another way to structure this plan to create that lifetime benefit, 33-month base policy, lifetime COB rider. All right, so I also wanted to show you some of those different recurring premium options as well. I will say this, if we focus on the very last column here, the single pay, you're going to notice that for this particular option here, for this single female age 61, the single pay plan for her is $82,853. So you're always going to find more leverage in a single pay option versus recurring, because we're getting all the money up front as the carrier. So just know that any single premium option is going to give them more leverage up front, But again, not everybody has that. So we've got a number of options here, and I wanted to kind of walk through that as well. Always still keeping with this $4,300 per month benefit amount for them. So really the same makeup, if you will, always with the lifetime option here as well, but just different ways to pay for it. So here's a 10-pay structure. You can see that that's $10,895 per year for the 10 years, and then would be a paid up policy. We stretch that out to 20 pay. Now we're at $68.78. If we then move to our annual pay option, which does become paid up at age 95, now we're down to $59.28. But again, this way, maybe you can retain more of those assets, keep them under your management as well. Maybe you're just taking a portion of their interest in paying for a plan like this. So lots of ways that we can design these types of plans. So here's where some of that minutia comes in. Always remember, it's a simple concept, base plus rider. All right, I really wanted to get into another area that I mentioned earlier as well, qualified funds. Now we call this, it's still in our asset care, it's our life-based chassis, but we call it asset care annuity funded. And I'll tell you why there's annuity in that name here in just a little bit, but this is a qualified fund scenario. Now, what I really want to point out here are the bottom two bullet points. First and foremost, the issue ages. You'll see it's 59.5 to age 80. So we still go up to age 80, but we're starting now at 59.5 because we don't want any of those individuals to incur any penalties by using these qualified funds. So we limit it to the 59.5. But you'll also see where they're currently getting these funds from. You know, it's a personal IRA, a 401k, 403b. It doesn't really matter what qualified source they have. We will use those to put a great plan in place here. It's a very simple plan, and I'm going to walk through this. The slide will get fairly busy, but I've tried to chunk it out, if you will, to hopefully help you follow along. But using qualified funds here, again, we're back to a male and female joint policy here, both age 60. And we're going to call it, she has an old 401k that is worth $200,000 that she wants to use to plan for both of them. Put a plan in place for both, covering both of their long-term care needs should they need them in the future. So we take that $200,000 in a direct trustee to trustee transfer. So direct rollover, no taxation there, comes directly into One America, and we put it into a qualified annuity at One America. That's where this annuity comes from in this name. But right off the bat, we're going to give that $200,000 or whatever amount they give us, we're going to give it a 25% bonus, because who doesn't like a bonus? So that $200,000 now becomes $250,000 that we're going to use to fund a base and rider solution on a 10-pay chassis. So that's kind of how this works. So we're going to break that $250,000 down into 10 equal parts, so $25,000 each. Now, because that's coming from a qualified source and going to a non-qualified source, there is going to be taxation that is attributable there. So the client each year will get a LTC 1099 for whatever that distribution happens to be. In this particular example, we're talking $25,000. I'll come back to that here in just a little bit, but basically we're going to use that $25,000, like I said, to fund a 10-pay base and rider solution. So what that $25,000 bought us for this couple was a death benefit of $267,236 plus that unlimited COB rider. So we'll see how it's all broken down here, if you will, from the premium that gets allocated to both those sources here. But what did that create for them? Over $8,000 per person per month in any long-term care benefits that would be needed. And really, that's the income needed for the expenditures that they may be needing. So many times when people are thinking that they're, they can self-insure, it's not that they can't, but what they may not have is the liquid income needed to pay those funds. They may be asset rich but cash poor. So this is creating that income stream specifically for long-term care expenditures. So quickly to wrap up here on this particular policy, why use qualified funds? Well, that's where the majority of US savings is. Another neat thing about this, we can use one spouse's qualified dollars to create the plan for both. And even if that one person that we were going to use their money is uninsurable, we can still use that to create the plan for the insurable spouse. So neat little piece there. Talked about the 25% bonus. We're going to spread that taxation out over those 10 years. So they're not taking it a one-time hit, but it's a, spread that taxation out over those 10 years. That taxation portion, once they reach age 73, the age of majority, that can be considered towards their RMD. So it's RMD friendly. They can use that towards their calculation. We're seeing a lot more planning in this at later ages because there's many clients out there that don't need their RMD for income. They're just looking for any way to satisfy this. And this is a great solution to put in place for that. The last couple things that I'll mention here, waiver of premiums built in, again, because this is a recurring premium. It's on a 10-pay chassis. Even though it's a one and done solution, it's on a 10-pay chassis. So waiver of premiums built in there as well. So if one goes on claim, it's going to waive those premiums. That distribution still happens, goes directly to the clients. They can do with it how they please at that point. And then lastly, inherited IRAs. The new Secure Act rules say any non-spousal inherited IRAs must be drained in 10 years. Well, this fits perfectly for those solutions. And the Secure Act said if they're under age 59 and a half, there is no 10% penalty. So great way to kind of transfer or use those inherited funds. May not run into them every day, but I'm sure you've run into them on an occasional basis. So I talked about annuity funded on our life chassis, but I really quickly wanted to talk about the annuity side as well, because we've got a great piece for that as well. I'm sure know why annuities are purchased, really one of four main reasons. But lastly, the one there to guard against catastrophic illnesses. And the Pension Protection Act, hopefully you know that name, but the Pension Protection Act now has been in place for quite a number of years, really gave us a great idea or option to plan for any long-term care needs. And that was by 1035 exchanging into a HIPAA compliant PPA eligible type of plan like all of our annuity care solutions are. So there are times when I will say, is your client's non-qualified annuity where it should be? Three main reasons that we use annuity care. Age, we can actually go up to age 85 here. Health, we don't have as many health questions, and I'll touch on that in a minute. Or again, utilizing the Pension Protection Act and 1035 existing non-qualified annuities. Why is that so important? Because we can get rid of all of this taxable gain in those contracts that have probably been around for years and have a large ticking tax time bomb, if you will. And if they then 1035 it into a PPA eligible plan, like all of our annuity care suite is, and if they use it for long-term care, now it's all income tax free. So we can shed all of that taxable gain, and we can add our optional COB benefits as well. So very briefly, I know we're just about wrapping up here, Rod, so I apologize. Three options. I'm really only going to focus on the last two. Annuity Care 2, this is a straight leverage play. So 40 to age 69, 4 times leverage. They give us 100,000, we give them a pool of $400,000 to use. 70 to 80 is 2.5 times leverage. So really straightforward, simple there. Indexed annuity care, this is the other one that we're seeing a lot more of, at least in sales today, because people want to take advantage of the upside of the market, but no downside risk. This is an indexed annuity. Again, issue ages 40 to age 85. And we've got some internal workings in this policy that are actually growing the LTC benefit as well as the annuity. So it acts kind of like inflation. So we see a lot of business there as well. To wrap it up on at least the knockout questions, pretty straightforward here for annuities. It's not the full in-depth underwriting. If it's base only, you've got 5 knockout questions. If they can answer no, we do a script check and a MIB check, and then it's accept or reject. We turn those around in 72 hours typically. If they do add the COB, there is a cognitive interview that will happen as well. So I thought I'd mention that. And the last thing that I wanted to say here before I turn it back to you, Rod, is the fact that we've got an eligible person provision. Because if you're doing 1035 exchanges, you know it must be like for like. So the rules are out there. So if it's singly owned, we can't put a joint, you know, we can't take a 1035 from a singly owned to make a jointly owned contract. Well, we've got an eligible provision policy here that says we'll just 1035 exchange that, still singly owned, but we add that eligible person, and now they both have access to those benefits. So almost creating joint ownership. It's not necessarily joint ownership per se, but it's joint receivership. They'll both get the benefits out of that policy. So with that, Rod, I'm going to turn it back to you because I've really pushed our limit here.
No, that's okay. We're great. That was wonderful. And, you know, we got to do what we can do. And there's always more to do than time to do it, as I know you're well aware. So what do we do with this info? We do want to be intentional. And so hopefully you've been thinking about people that need to have that kind of conversation. Please reach out to me or Andrew or George on your next case so that we can discuss your client and be able to help you. If you're going to look for quotes from us, please make sure that you've had a good planning conversation with your client first. You've asked them about their health. You get a sense for not only their budget, but where we might fund from, right? Being able to call and say, give me some long-term care quotes. Well, that's not quite enough direction, right? And as you heard here, a lot of it's about what's the plan, what's going to pay for it, and we can get back down. You don't want to show your clients 5 solutions, certainly not 10 solutions, and so we really want to be able to cull that down. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we do these Coaches Corners once per month on the 3rd Thursday of each month. That puts our next Coaches Corner for Thursday, June 15th. So stay tuned for information and an invite on that topic. By the way, if there is any topics that any of you would like to see us cover at US Advisors, please reach out to Andrew, George, or myself. We'd be happy to do that. Take a peek at our toolbox if you haven't already. If you wanted to see any of the material that we showed here today, please again reach out to us in order to make that happen. I'm going to go ahead and put Andrew, George, and my contact information on the screen as I send it back to Brent one last time for any final words from you, Brent.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. I appreciate that. I will just say thank you to all of you. Apologize about some of the technical difficulties, and I think you probably even heard some dogs at one point. So, but I really appreciate your valuable time to learn about what we have to help you and your clients plan for any long-term care in the future.
Love that. Thank you. My final words are thank you, Brent. Appreciate you and appreciate your partnership. For all of you on the call, I want to end this call like I end our Monday morning meetings here at the agency, which is let's help clients, let's be good leaders, and let's drive revenue. So appreciate all of you and hope to see you tuned in next month. Have a wonderful day, everyone.